Welcome to The Human Code, the podcast where technology meets humanity, and the future is shaped by the leaders and innovators of today. I'm your host, Don Finley, inviting you on a journey through the fascinating world of tech, leadership, and personal growth. Here, we delve into the stories of visionary minds who are not only driving technological advancement, but also embodying the personal journeys and insights that inspire us all. Each episode, we explore the intersections where human ingenuity meets the cutting edge of technology, unpacking the experiences, challenges, and triumphs that define our era. So, whether you're a tech enthusiast, an inspiring entrepreneur, or simply curious about the human narratives behind the digital revolution, you're in the right place. Welcome to The Human Code. In this episode, we're thrilled to welcome Andre Brongniart, a principal engineer with extensive experience in DevSecOps, cloud infrastructure, and cutting-edge technologies like Internet of Things, AI, and quantum computing. With a background that blends psychology and technology, Andre brings a deeply human perspective to the tech world. Today, Andre and I will share his journey from social work to technology and how it shaped his approach to engineering and leadership, the impact of IoT and AI on modern life, including the challenges and opportunities they present for privacy and user experience, as well as insights into the future of AI and quantum computing, and how we can prepare for the ethical and practical implications of these advancements. Join us as we dive into these thought-provoking topics with Andre Brongniart. This episode is packed with valuable insights that will inspire you to rethink how you approach technology and its integration into everyday life. You won't want to miss it. Welcome back to another episode. I'm here with Andre Brongniart. And Andre, I got to say, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We've had a few pre-calls and then getting into this. Really love the perspectives that you've been bringing to the table. And I just got to ask you, what is it that got you interested in the intersection between humanity and technology?
Sure. I've been working in technology for about 13 to 15 years. It's like a great transition. I used to work in other fields. Before technology, I was working as a psychiatric social worker. And before that, I actually studied film production and was very in touch with the technologies that are used for film production at that time. And I had a kind of pivot in my career from film, and I opted for something more intellectually focused, which was psychology. And that's very human-based type of engagement. So giving counseling sessions and helping mentally ill people with their problems in different settings. And it's a really, how can I describe it? A very eye-opening and great experience to have learned those things and gone to college to learn more about it. I started a master's degree in it and realized, you know what? This is probably not the best focus for me for a number of reasons. I was already involved with technology and film, and I wanted to come back to that. So I did not complete my master's. I decided to pursue technology. What specifically? I was looking into more the IT aspects, the infrastructure. And one of the things that really sparked my interest while I was working as a social worker was actually a conversation with Amazon executive at the time on NPR talking about multi-core technologies and hyperthreading for the cloud and how they were implementing that back when. And I found that fascinating, the ability to have multiple thread processing. And I just started really diving into technology. I've always been interested in technology. I make electronic music. I like to record guitar on the computer. So in that sense, that got me there. So the way that I interact with technology drew me naturally to it, to get involved more in it and launch a career in that.
Given that you've had a number of careers, like you went on the psychology, the social work, helping mentally ill people, but then also with film, like you're seeing that interface of how people are working with technology to aid in telling stories. Like we're sharing information with each other, we're moving the ball forward there. What is it that you've seen in the last few years that have excited you around the technology of either storytelling or from your past lives? What could be beneficial to the world?
If you think about it from connection between the human and the technology that are present now, it's evolved greatly since Around the same time that I was discussing that I changed my career was when the iPhone was planned to come out, the first iPhone. So I had wind about it, that there was going to be a device that had a touch screen. It was coming out from Apple and they didn't want to share what it was. And it was the iPhone. Everything's like IoT connected these days. Almost anything can be IoT connected. What meaning does that have from my perspective is that everything is translatable to data. So everything you do with an IoT connected device, whether it's your smartphone, your computer, a toaster, it could be anything. All that data, if as long as it's connected to the web, is going somewhere to the cloud. That is value for primarily really for the manufacturer of that product to use, but also you as an end user get value from the fact that they're analyzing what is happening with those devices so that they're able to create a better product. They're able to improve on what they have. I'm not sure that most people think about that very much, or my oven is connected to the internet kind of thing, but it brings all the things together. And that's where IoT is really breaking through. So when you start to implement machine learning and AI into the mix and start really analyzing all this data, and then the powers of what it can do is just explodes. Like you have an evolution
Yeah.
of what the potential possibilities are. Yeah.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, we've got an explosion of devices that are online now, like
Right.
the IoT devices. We have a number of items in our own space that I'm sitting here just counting the devices that are probably pinging the internet right now
Right.
and sending telemetry data back as far as their usage. And like you're saying, there's two sides to this. The manufacturer gets a benefit of understanding how their product is being used. The consumer reaps the reward of whether or not they can actually use that data to make the product better. But then additionally, like I get, I have Amazon Alexa and she dings every once in a while if there's a package at the front door or if there's something else. And so I get some advantage of knowing this. I know when the Amazon truck is 10 stops away because of the temp telemetry and IoT data that gets shared. I think one thing that you've hit on that I'd love to dive deeper into is that balance between our privacy as individuals and then also like the shared collective benefit of actually exposing that data. And I think a lot of us, we sign EULA agreements by clicking a button that's like a 40-page document for how Apple or Microsoft or anybody else is going to be using our data. Do you have any tips for people as far as like an understanding of what they could be sharing and should be sharing?
I think from my perspective, once you click a EU license agreement and it's a fine print agreement that you're not really reading, assume that your privacy and data will be used in any way, shape, or form, whether it's policies and regulations controlling that or not, really varies greatly on where you are, where you're a resident of, and what country you live in. So your privacy in terms of using that device will be limited to or controlled by what input put into that device, how you use it, and the actual like license agreement holder, which is between you and the company that is giving you that UELA. So I guess you could say assume, I don't like to say the worst, but assume that anything and everything can go from that device. That's the best suggestion I have in terms of your privacy. Unless you know that you have control over it another way, technically, assume that.
I think you're bringing up a good point. We touched on the iPhone earlier. And the iPhone was basically three features when it first came out. It was, what is it? Phone calls, music, and internet were the three things that Jobs announced that day. And it's blown up to be so much more. A device that many of us pick up 100 times a day
Right.
in order to look at. And now that we have generative AI coming into the picture and deeper integrations, along those lines, I think the conversation around privacy and security is coming front and center, because it was one thing to basically assume that your data was going to go sit in a data warehouse and then somebody was going to have to parse it, figure out what was going on, or it was just the endless trough of data that could essentially hide the inconsequential stuff that you're doing. But we've seen what happens with online advertising and social media, in which there's an added benefit to have a better understanding of what you're in the market to buy, what emotions will actually keep you on applications longer.
All right.
And with generative AI being so deeply ingrained into the tools and into our faces, if there is alignment with advertisers, I think it creates a different product than one that is aligned to the user's goals and benefits. Do you have any input on that topic as well?
Yeah, from the perspective of the data and how it's used, it can use, abuse, misuse. It's like anything. It can be used correctly and ethically. It can be used unethically. And when it comes to the person that's using technology, how do you benefit from it and not be taking advantage of it? It's a very complicated dynamic, right? We're paying for devices that we must agree to the EULA to use. If you don't agree, it won't let you proceed. Now, how do you get an advantage of it? Your advantage is that you're using a device that enables you to interact with technology in a way that improves your life to one degree or another. It improves the ability to communicate with people all around the world, to extend your career, to learn things in a split second. I've been using lately Brave browser. It's a privacy-based browser. It's very good. It's also has good tracking blocking abilities. So it will track and it will block things by default. You don't need like a browser plugin to block fingerprinting or whatever. It does it for you and it will tell you what it's doing. One of the greatest features of it recently that I really found was the AI integration. There's Brave AI, which is, to be honest, really good. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into what LLM is backing it, or if it's GPT or what, but it's very well tuned for searches. It's a search AI. So when you put in
Nice.
a search, you just click on the AI button and it will search all the most relevant results and give you a summary of all that in its own words, and it does it very well. So while
I gotta say that it's
because
one of those features that I'm really enjoying about the Arc browser as well. That it's a search for me capability, that it goes out and it looks I think six or so different websites to find your answer, and then it compiles a small report for you.
yeah, really quick. It's a nice way to see a summary of the top results according to whatever search engine you're using. So that's utility. And when Brave is not, they have a plan where you can make crypto credits on their browser by accepting Brave advertisements specifically geared towards you and your browser and what your profile is, still maintaining a certain degree of safety or privacy and security that you're browsing with minimal tracking. You're staying within a more of a Brave ecosystem, and less of a maybe perhaps an Alexa ecosystem or a Google ecosystem of search and data. So you'll still have options, which is a really good thing. Is that you have choices you can make. The most obvious choice is google.com. Is that always the best? You must ask, because it's the best known. It started and it was an amazing engine. There's options now and they're very well integrated into browsers these days. DuckDuckGo, whatnot, even though Microsoft kind of owns it now.
Like I was using an OpenAI assistant this morning. Team is working on an AI that's helping to answer like my social media messages. So LinkedIn, Instagram kind of thing, all from the business accounts. to kind of see. But then we also have Brave has their AI. Like I was saying, I use Arc browser's AI. And then additionally, we have another tool that has its own AI built into it as well. And I'm just getting an inundation of AI tools. And I'm just curious about how you see the possible futures of what these AIs are. We going to be having 15, 20 AIs that we're interacting with? Are we going to have a handful? Do you see there being consolidation in the future? Do we see AI as a feature or AI as a product or both?
I think it's both, but in a very high level, it's both. I think if our technology private sector and market is healthy, we'll have options. If we have mergers that are becoming more of a singular like monopoly, then obviously it's going to be more limited. And that happens, obviously, that's happened to a lot of technology. But I think that AI is always going to have niche cases and it's always going to have products and features that one will have, but another won't. So, oh, we lit over here. And there's so many potential use cases for ML that machine learning that have no direct connection to perhaps the common user. Would be more maybe at the military level, at the government level, or under the scientific industries. So from the perspective of a regular user, we'll have to see. Is everyone going to say, hey, I just use Microsoft Edge or I use Google Chrome? Is it going to be like that? Like I use ChatGPT or I use Llama or I use whatever is the next thing or the most powerful, well-known marketed thing? Who knows? But there will always be niches. There will always be more to do. One of the things that I've been dabbling with and thinking about a lot is, and I've done some research on this, is the ability to use quantum to do transformers with quantum. So quantum computers using LLM transformers and getting results that way. At the current time of this quantum era, I don't think we're quite there yet, but there are hybrid models that could be used. But in the future, that's probably going to be the way to go, the way that the industry is going to shift towards. Quantum computers and processors are very complicated to build, very expensive, and also very hard to maintain. But they have a smaller footprint in the future on the amount of energy they will use. So there's a lot of advantages other than just the ability to compute faster and more cycles with qubits. But there'll always be a room for classical computing because it drives the way we think. It's a lot more linear.
I'm curious as to, I think what you're saying is if we look at the energy usage of AI, it's getting to be ungodly ridiculous how much energy is being consumed by data centers for the specific purpose of AI.
Yeah.
And if you look at what really, let's say, so we get to AGI, artificial general intelligence, and we hit a mark of basically it being smarter than 50% of humans, we probably still hold an energy usage footprint that would be thousands of times greater than what it takes for the human brain to create the same solutions. Granted, we get tired, we get hungry, we get emotional. There's all these other aspects of humanity that make the tool still somewhat better. But when you look at an efficiency standpoint from just energy usage, the human brain is remarkable.
Oh,
and if
absolutely.
quantum can help us to get to that space, that's amazing. The other thing that I'd like to throw out there is one of the challenges with quantum computers is the temperature. We've got to keep it at near zero degrees in order to maintain quantum effects. And 0 degrees Kelvin, like we're talking about basically almost absolute zero is the ideal space to be running it. There was a research paper released about a month ago. And if you do researches on consciousness and quantum effects, specifically with Penrose, and Penrose wasn't the one who actually wrote it, but that's the way to find this. So Roger Penrose has this idea that consciousness could be a quantum effect.
Yes.
But We don't know what the method of holding quantum effects in the human brain are. And in the human brain is a warm, wet environment. So it is very different from a dry, cold environment that we currently do quantum compute. What they were able to find out in this paper is that in formaldehyde microtubules, which are the building blocks of your cells, so they give the cell structure, they're able to maintain quantum effects inside of those in a warm, wet environment. And so I could see from this, if we're able to hold qubits in these tubules, microtubules,
Mhm.
then there's a possible path forward to a quantum computer that could be done at room temperature, which would just greatly increase both the availability and ease at which we could go down that quantum path.
That's impressive. I hadn't heard of that article yet. That being said, like even if that doesn't come along because of maybe not practical or it doesn't work right or
Yeah.
it's error prone beyond the abilities that we have in the next 50 to 100 years to solve, having data centers like AWS, Microsoft, Azure, and whatnot, Google, GCP that have quantum computers in the long run that are centralized and taken care of can still work with them with classical computers.
Yep.
So in order to use them, you still need classical computers. But I guess the real power is once you get to a threshold where we're not just doing chemical simulations and physics simulation, we can do a lot more because the error correction and qubits are there. Anything that the GPU farm that's running for OpenAI can do, maybe one or two quantum computers together can do.
It's going to be
So,
really impressive. So, Andre, one last question for you. Like everybody out here is trying to find their footing in this space. We're going through a good amount of change in technology. That impact may not be felt in the rest of the community today, but it's coming. And community, I'm using that as the general kind of, let's say, world, United States, whatever. What would you recommend people do to get themselves prepared? Or how are you keeping yourself prepared for this incoming revolution of technology?
okay. Just to give a foundation to that answer, AI, ML, same thing. AI it's blown up and it's a storm and it's coming and it will start to settle, but it will always continue to improve. There are questions on whether they should restrain it, general AI, and basically getting to the point of singularity. So you were saying it's smarter than 50% of humans. But we're talking about exponentially growing intelligence beyond any IQ you can possibly imagine as time goes along. And as we know, technology increases in power and ability, generally speaking, exponentially. So that's a reality. I'm not sure how much constraint we can put on it, or we should or we shouldn't. But one of the things I do know, being a human, is that if it has human quality intelligence, regardless of how intelligent it is still something that's learning from us. So if we teach it to be destructive, it may be more destructive. If we teach it to be compassionate and caring, and we gate those things, we have a way to psychologically rear AI and gate it, which we do that. We have training, the way we train the models are that way. But we should have specialists that not only think of it from a neural perspective, from a technological perspective, but from a behavioral perspective. And I don't think there's anyone really expert in, say, psychology, like rearing psychology, that's really deeply involved in this process of AI. I do believe and have thought of this before is that we need that. We need specialists that understand psychology and human psychology.
Those are really good points that you have. And it reminds me of a story of two wolves. Are you familiar?
I think so, but I don't recall it.
Okay.
Interesting.
So the I can't actually remember how the story starts out, but it's an Eastern philosophy story. And the grandson goes to the grandfather and asks him a question, something about his own cognition of whether the bad thoughts, the sour feelings, the anger, whatever. And the grandfather goes, look, there's a battle of two wolves going on inside of your mind. On one side, you have the dark thoughts. You have things that are nasty, the anger, the despair, the sadness, the loneliness, the lack of connection. Like we can just name whatever fits into that darker wolf. And then on the other side, there's happiness, there's joy, there's connection, there's family, there's community, and there's creativity. And the grandfather tells the grandson that these are the two wolves that are battling inside of you. And the grandson asks, who wins? And the grandfather just responds, the one you feed. And I think that's what you're highlighting here, is that we've got to make a conscious choice as to how are we participating in this revolution of technology. And if we look at like how we're actually raising AI, can be right. It's raising AI and it's raising consciousness or raising intelligence. What is it that we want to see from this and how do we want to interact is incredibly important. Yeah. So Andre, I got to say thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate you sharing yourself, sharing your insights with the community. And it's been a blast just getting to know you as well over the past few days.
Thanks a lot, Don. I appreciate it. It's been a blast too. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you for tuning into The Human Code, sponsored by Findustries, where we harness AI to elevate your business. By improving operational efficiency and accelerating growth, we turn opportunities into reality. Let Findustries be your guide to AI mastery, making success inevitable. Explore how at findustries.co.